Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about link building. Link building is one of the most important parts of SEO, especially if you're growing and building up your authority. Of course, you can use cornerstoning. You can find low keyword difficulty keywords. A lot of people are really good at that. A lot of people actually get quite far. I've had quite a lot of success. I prefer to use proper link building and cornerstoning just to accelerate things because businesses don't have a long time to wait. As I've said before, there is no time in SEO, right? So a lot of people think that, a 10-year-old domain has more authority than a 3-year-old domain. And that's just not true. What happens is that domains that are actively being marketed, that are actively building up their reputation online are gaining links, gaining traffic, right? And gaining visitors. And that helps build up their authority. But it's not guaranteed. And it also means that a domain name that's just sitting there doesn't rank better. In other words, the time factor is not really a big part of the equation, if any part of the equation at all. Because time doesn't make content better. It really doesn't. Time also doesn't age content out, right? It doesn't make it worse. There's so many myths. There's so many myths that are just based on people saying, well, I think this or this doesn't make sense, therefore Google can't be doing it. And there's so many people latching onto that through, our basic failings as humans, especially in such a data-driven universe, right? There are so many people that we keep using our pattern recognition rather than thinking. And just because something makes sense doesn't make it real. And some of the things I hate are when people say, well, Google wants this, therefore that. That should just pop up as a yellow flag. I'm not saying it's wrong. What I mean is when you hear that, someone's trying to sell you something. And so that's when you turn your critical thinking on and go like, does this make sense from every point of view? If I reverse it, does it make sense? And quite often it doesn't. So for example, does a Smithsonian document on a war become less relevant because it was written 5 years ago? Has anything been added to the war or information about the war? Or and there might be. There may have been a dig nearby. There may have been documents that turned up in a warehouse somewhere or in someone's attic or a barn, and that may add to it. But it doesn't make the first document less relevant just because it's 5 years old. At midnight on December 31, Google doesn't sort of like age everything out, right? And when you look at Reddit posts, for example, in Google results, which then in turn feed up to AI results, a lot of them exhibit some of the same surface data. So let's look into that for a quick second, right? So if you go to Google and type in something like link building Reddit or best credit cards Reddit, you'll see that a lot of them have a high number of upvotes. And a lot of people are saying that's Google using social signals. Absolutely doesn't. Google will show things like the best answer, the one that has the most upvotes. And if you do enough digging, you'll eventually find that some of those could even be posted by accounts that are since suspended. So Google's really using social signals. It should exclude accounts that are suspended, but it doesn't because it doesn't care. What happens, and this affects parasitic SEO, and I've been watching this for years and I've never really said much about it because I just wanted to see what the sort of collective water table, water level on parasitic SEO looks like. And a lot of people seem to think that when you look at the people who are very good at parasitic SEO, it's because they understand the fundamentals of SEO. They haven't invented something new. They just know how PageRank works very, very well and they've used it to their advantage. And then everyone sort of like sees like, oh, this is a great hack. I can use Medium or LinkedIn or Reddit or whatever to push my content up. But what they don't realize is that Google's not good with duplicate content at managing it, and it causes cannibalization. And so the threads that rank aren't because they're the freshest, because some of them are 5 years old. They're so old, they're archived. A lot of subs archive after 6 months, but yet you will see 5 years old, 3-year-old, 2-year-old, 1-year-old subreddits ranking the highest. And that's because one, they've got a longer click-through rate history. Two, they've got the slug, right? So it's very unlikely for 2 or more pages to rank for the same thing. Cannibalization, duplicate content, the fact that every domain is limited to 2 results per SERP. And so when people try to sell you, oh, Google wants fresh content, it doesn't. Nowhere does it say that. Google wants the most accurate content. Nowhere does it say that. Google's mission is to find the most relevant content because it can't validate the most accurate content. And that's why all of these myths and all of these changes in SEO become more important to people that want to stand out as influencers. And I'm not knocking them. They can do that if they want. So how does link building work and how has link building changed? So I've always seen link building as a relationship between companies mirrored online. So all the companies I've worked at, we've had great go-to-market strategies with partners, whether that's Microsoft. So if you're building an app and Microsoft says, hey, could you get a version of that into our ecosystem? And often we've done that with AWS and Microsoft, where we have competing products, right? Microsoft have 3 different types of load balancers. Load balancers at their very basic are a reverse proxy. Load balancers at their highest end are application delivery controllers. Microsoft has all 3. It has a reverse proxy, it has a load balancer, it has an ADC. And it also has lots of partners, including Citrix and F5 that have ADCs or load balancers. And they do a lot of work. When I was at Kemp, did a camp with Microsoft's Azure team that included some marketing officers they just hired from Intel. And we had a 2 or 3 day camp out where we talked about how we would market our ADC controller, and we did video, and they gave us LinkedIn budget, and they gave us ad budget, and they gave us TechNet blog posts, and they gave us experienced product managers that would build apps in the cloud. And all of those things are things that Google can see. Yet whenever we talk about links, people seem to have like reduced the conversation size down to a certain number of things. That's also because of spam in the past. Like, for example, nobody ever talks about comment spam anymore, or sorry, comment linking, because it turned into such a huge spam exercise. Everyone knows directories don't work, but they don't not work because Google is tackling it at a superficial level. Another thing that you'll see is that people are saying that listicles are spam. Listicles aren't spam. Google produces lots of listicles. If you look at Google Trends, it publishes lots and lots of listicles. That's all Google Trends really is. It's a listicle. Google's not going to get rid of listicles. Google can't really tackle the web by saying, we don't like this type of content, or one person has used this content for spam, we have to get rid of it. That would make the world very boring. That's also one of the biggest myths that content writers put out, which is saying that there's a certain structure. Google likes the structure. And now that's translated itself into geospam, which is like you have to write in it. It makes no sense. Like, why would Google care? And so it doesn't. And so it doesn't really care about a lot of the things. What it tries to do is fix things at the mechanical layer. It's not really mechanical, and I hate mechanical analogies, but the mechanics of SEO are fundamentally the same. How Google calculates it, the different values, the different numbers in the algorithm. And if you get those numbers right, you rank immediately. And so if you're wondering about, oh, well, maybe David's wrong about age, then why is parasitic SEO and not parasitic SEO, why is PSEO with scaled content so effective? You remember why Julian Goldie got banned and pretty much had his own Google call or Google spam update? It's because he demonstrated how devastatingly effective scaled content was. He ranked thousands of pages to get thousands of impressions, millions of impressions within an hour. So if age is playing such a part, how come it's suddenly suspended for him? And that's another thing. Every page goes through the exact same indexing service, right? So if people are saying, well, Google's doing this, it's spam, Google thinks it's thin content, Google can't evaluate all of that in 0.001 seconds. Yet every page on the internet has to go through the same system. There are different systems for CNN and different things and different, all of these use cases are made up. They're got of the gap arguments. Google's in this. Oh, it's Google's this. Oh, well, this. And what they're just trying to do is defend the earlier point and move and move and move. Something humans do all the time. We do it in religious debates. We do it in political debates. We do it in debates. That's really the point we're trying to make, because people don't want to give up the original concept. And if you find yourself in one of these gap arguments, just quit. That's the biggest mistake I made on Reddit. I spent too much time following the gaps and trying to uncover it. The minute somebody goes into the gaps, you what? Just finish it out. They're not trying to help you. They're trying to keep their ego from getting bruised. Just walk away. I think we need to do this with people spreading this. So if you're on X and you're a new user and you're like, well, I'm trying to understand all this, it's too complicated. It's not actually very complicated. If you rank in Google and you get clicks, you have topical authority. It's just that simple, right? And if you understand that, you can move forward. If you're following someone who's like, oh, here's a list of things, drop interested in the reply, I'll send you my book, start applying critical thinking. And if it turns out that you don't like it and it doesn't make sense, block them. Just absolutely block them. One of the things that I also think is important in SEO is that SEOs rank, right? Because a lot of SEOs don't really understand link building. And I see link building as purely white hat. I think that mirroring those relationships, right? And you don't have to mirror a relationship with Microsoft. There are people all over X talking about email outreach. trying to find link partners, link exchanges. Agencies, whether they're web design agency or SEO agencies, all have the same problem. They're looking for backlinks, right? If you're in the same city, and I was talking about Jake Huntley, about Jake Huntley on our interview the other day, and you're a plumber, why can't you partner with an electrician and vice versa? Why can't you recommend people? If you have someone you want to recommend, why wouldn't they recommend you? You both are in a great position to trust each other. You're both in a position where reviews matter, where customer satisfaction matters, where building a lifetime relationship with people in the same city matter, especially lawn care, right? Because lawn care comes back every year. Why aren't you using that to your advantage, right? Why are you building links on random directories that are a hangover of the early 2000s or even 1990s? Why are you spending time building links there? Why are you emailing businesses on the other side of the country? If you're building a SaaS product and there are hundreds of people on a SaaS forum or in a SaaS thread on X going, I don't know where to get links. Link building's so hard. Saying link building is hard or saying Reddit is hard doesn't make them go away. People in Reddit aren't going to go and fix it for you. You have to fix it yourself. I had a conversation with a CEO, very nice guy. Really appreciate the time that he gave me to answer the questions. And we kind of ended the conversation with him saying, I need to go back and fix Reddit. Dude, I can't go back and fix Reddit. That's not how it works. Reddit doesn't take any interest in what I do or what I say. If I want Reddit to work for me, I've got to make it work for myself. And if I look at my LinkedIn profile, I get maybe 3,000 impressions a week. If I look at my blog posts, I get maybe 5,000 ticks in a week if I'm lucky. If I look at my Reddit profile, I get 1.5 million. Reddit is just where that works for me and my personality. LinkedIn is a complete waste of time, but I find that I have a tribe on LinkedIn. It keeps me connected to people I actually have business relationships with, and I like that. So if you're trying to figure out links, why aren't you working with your other companies in your ecosystem, right, that are non-direct competitors? And even if they are, why can't you still build links with each other? The key thing about link building is that both pages or a page must rank and get traffic in Google. One of the weirdest things I see people ask on X and Reddit is, how do I get backlinks indexed? If you're asking how do you get a backlink on a page indexed because you don't see it showing up, that page isn't important to Google, right? If you look back at my how does indexing and crawling work in Google, that's based on authority. So if that page isn't getting crawled and indexed enough, and you don't have to understand the whole mechanics of it, you just have to know that if the page isn't getting indexed, you're not getting value from that link, and you're just trying to band-aid at a superficial level. Come back down. If a page is getting traffic, i.e. organic Google traffic, the link won't matter. I know that there's a lot of talk about changes in Google. We have AIO, we have the death of blue links, which has been going on for 2 years. Funny enough, a CMO guy that I know on LinkedIn actually heard it at a Google talk, and he's been saying it on LinkedIn like he came up with it. What's interesting is his company is actually losing to AI. He tried to get the hop on it ahead of the curve. I respect the hustle, but they haven't gone anywhere yet. And you don't have to worry about next year or 2 years from now. You have to worry about today. And